Today, I want to talk about the privacy paradox in AI. And I'm going to go through a few ideas and try to explain exactly why I think there's a paradox, especially with AI, and what that means to us as individuals or as companies or as anything else which is related to this technology and also with privacy at the same time. So I'm Daniel Luca, also known as Clean Unicorn. I'm like everywhere Clean Unicorn. So in one sense, I'm not super private. I'm an entrepreneur and, to be honest, mostly a developer, like more the CTO type. And I'm also a security auditor. So I was a security auditor at Consensus Diligence and also at Akira Tech, which was my own security practice. It's not part of the part of this, but also co-founded the stablecoin. So I had the opportunity of working pretty closely with investors and building a product. And after I did that, I thought maybe there's a few ways I can improve it. So now I do tech at Eden Block, which is a crypto VC. So we invest a lot in Web3 projects and AI. So I think privacy is a basic necessity. It is part, like, if you're a human, it's an innate need to keep some facts to ourselves, private, and only share them with people you trust and you care about and you value their judgment and who understand you. Or even some of those facts you don't want to share with anyone. I do think that you may have heard this, but some people say, if you haven't done anything bad, there's nothing to worry about. And I would love to see in the audience if people believe that. So if you can put your hand up so we can kick you out. I think this is a good explanation of that. Like it's not just that. It's not about doing bad things. So everybody has their own limits when it comes to how comfortable they are with privacy. And so everybody has some kind of privacy need they have to accomplish. And this is, I think, a good example. I mean, maybe you want to say, like, I don't need a lot of privacy, but yeah, I'm not sure. So there is a spectrum of, like, I'm extremely private, so I don't even have a smartphone. I only use a Nokia 3310, which is even like worse than having a Graphene OS or anything like that. And on the other part of the spectrum is like I use password as my password. And I honestly was like that when I was really young. I used password, but spelled backwards, so I thought I was smart. It was pretty cool back then, but I was maybe 12. So I think privacy has one of very interesting parts is that privacy is safety for people. I want to talk about like really understanding why this is the case and how we should use it. So this is Finney. This is my dog. I named him after Hal Finney. You might have heard of him, one of the Bitcoin developers. And the fact that I'm sharing this with you says something about me and how I relate to you right now. So I am open to share this fact with you, with a circle of friends, with people that I trust, and I feel like I have something in common. Thing is, I have to walk him every day because he's a dog and he has to do some kind of exercise, but also he has to poop. So when he poops, because I'm the one responsible and I have him on a leash, I kind of watch him. I kind of have to watch him doing his business. So he doesn't have a lot of privacy. And to be honest, I'm trying to give him more privacy, but he has to earn it over time because I'm the one responsible. I know he doesn't, he's not super, he wants to be free, but he knows that freedom comes with a price. Now, the interesting thing is I really don't know if he wants more freedom or not, but like I assume he does. This is Dr. Sidney Girard. He's a Canadian psychologist who in the 60s and 70s, he studied people in different instances of having levels of privacy. And he created the self-disclosure theory. And this theory is interesting because it emphasizes the role of self-disclosure openly, sharing personal thoughts, feelings, and experiences in developing relationships, self-understanding, and even personal growth. He argued that self-disclosure is essential for mental health and allows individuals to gain insights into their own identities and understand others better. This creates stronger bonds. And Girard saw this act of disclosure as central to authentic connection, and he was suggesting that withholding thoughts and emotions could lead to alienation or poor psychological health. In some extreme cases, it actually led to physical pain. So I'm presenting all of this because people in this community have a hard time finding each other. Online, you're like this weird avatar with a made-up name and a made-up username, and you go to these conferences, and it's so difficult to find the people you actually interacted with before. So I don't think this is very beneficial for the whole community as a whole, because you do need more connections and stronger connections with the people in order to also organize yourself. But you know, being an anarchist kind of destroys the idea of being organized. So there's a duality there, which I find interesting. So what happens in the extreme case? This is the panopticon. This is, for a really long time, this was a concept created by an English philosopher and social theorist. His name is Jeremy Bentham. So he created this idea. If you look at the image, you see on the outside, this is a prison. So like, just to be clear, this is the design for a prison. And the idea was that if you create such an environment where you always see the inmates, they are going to behave better. And on the outside are their cells. And on the inside, you will find guards who always watch them. The idea is that you don't know exactly if you watched right now, but you have the feeling of being watched. This whole design is built in such a way that you're not allowed to have a lot of privacy. And when individuals are constantly monitored, they do alter their behavior. This forces them to conform socially, adopt common norms, and kind of change their beliefs or preferences. In essence, constant surveillance creates self-censorship, and people avoid actions that could bring unwanted attention. This does create multiple problems. A few things is like you lose self-expression, you lose autonomy, and it's very difficult to create genuine relationships. Now, I think that we kind of live in a digital panopticon. In this digital space, it's maybe less obvious that we're being watched all the time, but all of our data is tracked. Even if you use a Nokia 3310, you're still tracked. The telecom company knows where you are, so it still has your location. In the digital world, being highly literate and knowing your data is collected, knowing your data is processed and used, makes the experience kind of knowing that you are under surveillance all the time, it kind of makes it objectively worse. Because you know you can't stop it, and you know you're being watched, so you kind of alter your behavior. You're not yourself so much. So I think that in this case, knowledge is anxiety. Usually knowledge is power, but having this kind of knowledge creates a sense of paranoia when you realize how much is being collected. And the more you know, the worse it is. So I'm coming with a few examples right now. This is Slack, Teams, Discord. I'm not sure if you know, but your Slack admin can read your DMs if they want to. This is kind of scary when you figure it out. Maybe Discord and other, like you don't read the DMs, but you still have a lot of power over what people, what you know about the people, or about your members there. And even if the admin doesn't have that, the Discord has access to that data, the Discord team. If you look at other industries, okay, so this, I'm not sure if anyone recognizes this. I'm going to give you a hint. It's part of Blizzard. Blizzard is this game company, created StarCraft and a few other great games. This is Deckard Cain. It's kind of interesting that this character from Diablo was providing the player advice, gossip, and it would even identify items for you. He kind of was the knowledge owner, the knowledge master. So ironically, or maybe non-ironically, he's presenting this end-user license agreement, which is kind of tough to look at. So this is how items would look like unidentified, for example. And if you go through the end-user license agreement, you will see that Blizzard can transfer your data to other servers. So that means that different rules apply once that data is in different geographies. And you do consent to be monitored. All data and communications are collected. But at least you get to own the games that you really love. However, in fact, you don't even own the games. They're not sold to you. They own the games. They can take it from your account. They can do whatever they want. So you're not even getting that. A bit about OpenAI. So OpenAI has this end-user license agreement, and you have different geographies. So that means that they try to take the most and use the most out of data based on each geography. So it's not like they're trying to be private. They're trying to collect as much as possible, as much as the law lets them. This is Cursor. Cursor is a pretty good IDE to write code. And if you enable privacy mode and if you keep privacy mode off, you have different settings of doing it. But they still send data to other services. And then those terms apply. And if you go to them, it's not clear that they're not connecting data. And I actually wanted to enable privacy mode in Cursor, and it's very difficult because it's not called privacy mode. In all their help is you call it privacy mode, but then they design it, they named it as trust, and you have to edit the JSON configuration file. So it's not easy to do it. I use ChatGPT, honestly, and this is the memory that it automatically creates about you. So I spent a week in Japan. I was trying to learn some phrases, and now it thinks I'm spending a week in Japan. It knows what I drink. It knows I'm Romanian, and I'm trying to improve my English and whatever. It just adds this kind of information about you, and you might say, okay, so maybe I'm not spending the week in Japan right now, but this software will improve over time, and it will know what information to make obsolete, but it still has that information about me. So, yeah, the more you know, the worse it is. So, okay, where do we go from here? we have this privacy AI paradox because you need a lot of data to get good results. So with AI, it's always like garbage in, garbage out. But it's also, when you're a user, the more context you provide, the more information you provide about you and your actual problem, the better results you'll get. But that's against being private. So how do you solve this? Okay. We have some options. So there's lots of technologies that, if you look at them, like you have federated learning, which is spreading the AI training over multiple machines, and you can also add some cryptography on top of that. You have homomorphic encryption, so that means that you encrypt information and you can work with it without knowing what's there. So you can share that data with other services, but they don't know what they're working with. So it's still private for you. You have differential privacy, secure MPC, like all these technologies which are good, but they're pretty difficult to set up. They require more resources, and we already know that AI is using a lot of resources. So it's going to be difficult to put this into practice just because like a lot of information actually makes the service better. You can also anonymize the data. So like one way to do it is to create multiple accounts, like multiple identities. And I used to do that when I was part of a hacking group, and I kind of killed that identity now, but I had to do it because I had to connect with the other hackers. I had my own handle, but you do the most to keep that private and keep that separate from everything else. There are other techniques like data partitioning, so you split your data around, you obscure personal IDs, or you tokenize. This is like removing some names and adding a token instead of that. So instead of having a clear name, you just add a unique ID to it. But it's a lot. What I actually do is that I run a lot of AI models locally. So I need a pretty strong machine to do that. But then I'm able to really talk to it freely. Because otherwise I feel watched when I use Claude, when I use OpenAI, when I use anything else. But it does require resources, time, and I see my battery in my laptop just going down when I run an inference, and you need like at least 24 gigabytes of RAM, so there's a lot of, you have some specific hardware requests. So in a way, privacy kind of becomes a burden for me because I want to have privacy, but it creates all these difficulties for me. And if the biggest problem that I see, and I think it's going to be very difficult, is that some people who use the open services, the one that collect data from you, are going to, those people are going to get better results. Those people are going to be more productive. And if you're private, you kind of have to hope that the people who do that are going to have a bad event, which is not something good to wish to another person, just to be right. Because you're doing all this work, it's a burden for you, and they don't do it, so they're going to get burned at a later date in the future. But I also think that privacy should be freedom. You have to think about privacy as freedom because if you think about it, surveillance influences behavior. So how much of your authentic self are you willing to trade for convenience? Since surveillance kind of reshapes behavior, it influences us to conform or withhold information and not show our authentic selves with us and with our own technology, a technology that we should own. So I'm going to leave you with these ideas because it's not easy to find the right balance between the two. but I think both are very important and both are antithetic. So like, I'm glad you're here. This really shows that you care about technology, you care about privacy, you care about AI. And I salute you for that. And I want to leave you with one really important thing. If we can't protect ourselves, we can't truly be ourselves. Thank you. I'm not sure. Do we have time for questions or?
Hey, thanks. Great talk. Question about like being able to do private like inference ourselves. What are you seeing emerging in terms of technology that's, bringing the cost of essentially, access to tokens per second down for the average individual? I know that there are some solutions that are out there, but typically they're ranging 50, 60, 70,000 or more. So are you seeing anything coming out that actually drives that cost down for retail?
I don't think we've explored completely exactly what we can do. So there's a lot of innovation in AI in terms of learning how to do better models and how to use models better, but RAGs and all kinds of new approaches to add stuff to AI, but also model architectures or distilling models, which is a way of technique of extracting exactly what you want from a larger model and using that locally. I think Macs are a pretty good thing because they give you a lot of shared memory and you can use them. But what I want to see more is that in crypto specifically, you have this good coordination mechanism that crypto is really good at. So you could create networks that do the inference for you. You interact with them and they provide you the results, but you also have to add some kind of technologies on top of that so it remains private. And you also have to trust the technology. So I don't think we're there yet. I think this part is just getting started and we'll see more and more interesting things happening in the near future, like very, very soon.
One follow-up. Do you think then that perhaps innovation or exploring more things around like small language models that are more focused on specific topics that are more cost effective in terms of raw compute, maybe like a viable path to actually enabling more private inference?
Yes, so like distilled models, small language models, which have your own database somewhere accessible, they make inference much cheaper and very useful to you, and also very private. So like I think those work. However, in practice right now, to be honest, like for me, ChatGPT is one of the best ones, but I try to use it as little as possible. So I also run Llama on my laptop, and it's we're gonna see more different architectures in the future, because backpropagation and transformers have got us up to here. But we're going to see more interesting things pretty soon, I think.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Again, let's give him a warm applause, people.